A young girl was selling her artwork on the street, desperate to raise money for her life-saving chemo treatment. But just when she thought no one was paying attention, a stranger walked by. That stranger? Clint Eastwood. And what he did next left everyone speechless. Before we dive into this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more powerful stories like this. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Let's see how far this story spreads. In the heart of Los Angeles, on a bustling street corner near Venice Beach, Emily Carter, a 14-year-old girl with a shaved head and tired eyes, sat on the sidewalk with a small table of watercolor paintings. Each one had a handwritten price tag: $10, $15, $20. Beside her, a cardboard sign read, "Selling my art to pay for my chemo." Passers-by glanced at her but hurried along. Some looked sympathetic, but no one stopped. Emily bit her lip, fighting back tears. Her mother, Lisa, had already sold everything they owned to pay for Emily's cancer treatment. And now, this was their last shot. Emily picked up her brush, forcing a smile as she started painting again. She had no idea her life was about to change. An hour later, Emily was packing up her things, discouraged. That's when she heard footsteps stop in front of her. She looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. Standing before her was an older man in a cowboy hat, squinting at her paintings. She immediately recognized him. Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor, the Hollywood icon. Emily froze. Was this real? Eastwood picked up one of her paintings, a delicate sunset over the ocean. He studied it for a long moment, then turned to her. "You painted this?" he asked, his gravelly voice soft. Emily swallowed hard. "Why, yes, sir." Eastwood nodded slowly. "This is really good." Emily's eyes widened. But before she could say anything, Clint did something that left her, and everyone around, stunned. Clint pulled out his wallet and placed a stack of bills on the table. Emily's jaw dropped. He had just handed her $2,000 for a single painting. The small crowd around them gasped. Emily's hands shook. Sir, I can't. This is too much." Clint held up a hand. "No, it's not," he said. "And I'm not done yet." He turned to the people nearby, raising his voice. "This young lady is selling her artwork for chemo. You all see this, right?" The crowd murmured. Clint pointed to the paintings. "Well, what are you waiting for? Buy some." And just like that, everything changed. Within minutes, people rushed forward. A woman bought 2 paintings. A man handed Emily a $100 bill for a sketch. Someone else bought 5 pieces at once. The tiny art table that had been ignored all day? It was now swarmed with buyers. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She looked up at Clint. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Clint smiled. "Well," he said, "you can start by getting better." Emily burst into tears. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. The next morning, Emily's story went viral. A bystander had recorded everything and posted it online. Within hours, the internet exploded. Clint Eastwood helps young cancer patients sell art. You won't believe what he did. A Hollywood legend's kindness changes a girl's life. The video that's making America cry. News stations picked up the story. Emily and her mother were suddenly flooded with messages from strangers wanting to help. And then, Emily got a phone call. A life-changing phone call. Emily's mother, Lisa, answered the phone, putting it on speaker. "Hello." A warm female voice spoke. "Hi, Lisa. This is Ellen DeGeneres." Emily gasped. "I saw your daughter's story, and I'd love to have you both on my show." Lisa covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. "We'd be honored." Ellen chuckled. "Well, get ready, because we have a big surprise for Emily." Emily's heart pounded. What kind of surprise? She was about to find out. And it would change everything. Emily thought Clint Eastwood's kindness was the biggest surprise of her life. But when she walked onto Ellen DeGeneres' stage, she had no idea what was about to happen. What Ellen revealed next changed everything and left the entire audience in tears. A week after the viral video, Emily and her mother flew to Los Angeles for their appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres Show. As they waited backstage, Emily's hands trembled. She had never been on TV before. Lisa, her mother, squeezed her hand. "No matter what happens, we already won." Emily nodded. Then, a producer called her name. "It's time." Emily took a deep breath, then stepped onto the stage, and was met with thunderous applause. Ellen smiled warmly as Emily sat down. "Emily," she said, "your story touched millions of people. You were selling art to afford chemotherapy. Then Clint Eastwood comes along and does that." The audience laughed and clapped. Emily blushed. "Yeah, it still doesn't feel real." Ellen leaned forward. "What was going through your mind when Clint pulled out that $2,000? Emily smiled softly. "Honestly, I thought it was a mistake." The audience awed. Ellen chuckled. "It definitely wasn't a mistake." And after that moment, something amazing happened. She turned to the screen behind her. A clip played, showing the massive outpouring of support Emily had received. Donations, messages, artists and celebrities offering to help. Emily covered her mouth, overwhelmed. But Ellen wasn't done. She took a deep breath. "Emily," she said, "I have something to tell you." Emily's heart pounded. Then Ellen spoke the words that changed her life. Ellen turned to the camera. "Emily, we reached out to some very special people." She gestured to the side of the stage. A door opened, and stepping out was Clint Eastwood. The audience erupted. Emily gasped, tears streaming down her face. Clint walked toward her, smiling. He hugged her gently. "Good to see you again, kid," he said. Emily couldn't believe it. But then, it got even better. Clint reached into his pocket. "I have one more surprise for you," he said. He handed her a golden envelope. Emily shakily opened it. Inside, a check for $250,000. The audience exploded in applause. Emily collapsed into tears. Lisa sobbed uncontrollably. Clint leaned down. "That should cover your treatment," he said softly. "And a little extra to follow your dreams." Emily couldn't speak. For the first time since her diagnosis, she wasn't scared anymore. By the next morning, Emily's story was everywhere. Clint Eastwood's act of kindness changes a girl's life forever. Ellen and Eastwood team up to save teen's life. You won't believe what they did. Hollywood legend proves there's still good in the world. Emily's GoFundMe skyrocketed. Her medical bills completely covered. For the first time in months, she could focus on living. But then, something incredible happened. Emily got another phone call. This time, it was from a world-famous artist. And what he said next would change everything again. Emily thought her journey was over. Her medical bills were covered, her story had touched millions, and she had just met Clint Eastwood. But then, her phone rang. On the other end, one of the world's most famous artists. And what he said next changed everything. Again. Emily was sitting at home with her mother when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Lisa, her mother, raised an eyebrow. "You gonna answer that?" Emily hesitated, then picked up. "Hello." A deep, warm voice replied. "Is this Emily Carter?" Emily's heart raced. "Yes. Who's this?" The voice chuckled. "My name is Jeffrey Winston." Emily froze. Jeffrey Winston, one of the most famous contemporary artists in the world. Her idol. Emily's jaw dropped. "Wait, this isn't a joke, right?" Winston laughed. "No joke, kid. I saw your story. And I've got an offer for you." Emily gulped. She wasn't ready for what he was about to say. Winston didn't waste time. "I run an art foundation in New York for young artists," he explained. "And I want you to be part of it." Emily's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a kid." Winston chuckled. "Kid, You're selling paintings to pay for chemotherapy. That's more dedication than half the artists I know." Lisa covered her mouth, tearing up. Winston continued, "I want you to come to New York. Spend a few months learning, creating. I'll cover everything. Travel, supplies, housing." Emily felt dizzy. She had dreamed of becoming an artist. But never in her wildest dreams did she think someone like Jeffrey Winston would notice her. "You mean, I'd be a real artist?" she whispered. Winston smiled. "You already are." Emily burst into tears. Lisa hugged her tightly. "Is that a yes?" Winston asked. Emily wiped her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes." The next chapter of her life was about to begin. 2 weeks later, Emily and Lisa landed in New York City. The energy, the lights, the towering buildings, it was a whole new world. Winston greeted them at the airport, a tall man with silver hair and paint-stained hands. "Welcome to the Big Apple," he said, grinning. He took them straight to the Winston Art Foundation, a massive, open-space studio filled with young artists. Emily's breath caught. Canvases, sculptures, murals, art everywhere. "This," Winston said, "is your new home." Emily's heart swelled. For the first time in her life, she belonged. Over the next few weeks, Emily pushed herself harder than ever. She learned from master painters. She experimented with new styles. She lost herself in art. But something still haunted her. Her paintings, they were good, but they weren't great. She felt like something was missing. And one night, as she sat alone in the studio, she realized what it was. Her art was beautiful, but it didn't tell her story. She had survived cancer. She had fought for her dreams. And she hadn't put that on the canvas. That night, she started a new painting. Something raw. Something real. She had no idea that this painting would soon make history. 2 months later, the Winston Art Exhibition was held in Manhattan. The biggest names in the art world were there. And right in the center of the gallery, Emily's painting. A massive, breathtaking piece called "Fighting for Tomorrow." It showed a girl, bald, frail, but fierce. Her eyes burned with determination. Around her, explosions of color. Pain, hope, survival, all in one painting. The gallery was silent. Then, slowly, applause. A reporter whispered, "Who painted this?" Winston stepped forward. "A 14-year-old girl named Emily Carter." That's when the bidding started. And what happened next? No one saw coming. Emily's painting, "Fighting for Tomorrow," had stunned the entire gallery. But when the bidding started, something happened that no one saw coming. The final buyer? Someone she never expected. And the price? It left the entire room in shock. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Bidding for Fighting for Tomorrow will start at $10,000. Emily's heart pounded. $10,000 for her art. That was more money than she ever imagined. Then, a hand shot up. $20,000. Gasps rippled through the room. Another bidder raised a paddle. $50,000. Emily felt dizzy. Then someone called out, $100,000. The room erupted. A bidding war had begun. Emily covered her mouth, overwhelmed. But then, a deep, familiar voice spoke. And when she turned around, her jaw dropped. Standing at the back of the room, casually raising his paddle. Clint Eastwood. The entire gallery fell silent. Emily's eyes widened. "See Clint." He smiled and spoke calmly. $1 million. The room exploded. Did he say $1 million? Someone gasped. Emily couldn't breathe. The auctioneer, stunned, banged his gavel. "Sold, for $1 million. Tears streamed down Emily's face. Clint walked up to her, smiling. "You keep inspiring, kid," he said. "That's all I ask." Emily burst into tears. This wasn't just a sale. It was a message. She was worth it. Her dream was real. By the next morning, the headlines were everywhere. Clint Eastwood buys teen cancer survivors painting for $1 million. Young artist's work moves Hollywood legend to tears. From Chemo to million-dollar painter, Emily Carter's incredible journey. The world was inspired. People flooded social media with support. Artists, celebrities, and everyday people shared her story. And then, Emily got a phone call from the White House. The president wanted to meet her. A week later, Emily stood in the Oval Office. The president smiled warmly. "Emily, your story reminds us all that strength comes in many forms." He handed her a plaque. "For inspiring millions, I'm honored to present you with the National Young Artist Award." Emily's hands shook. She had never felt prouder. She had fought for her life. She had fought for her dreams. And now, she had won. Months later, Emily was back in Los Angeles. She had just finished a new painting, one inspired by the man who changed her life. It was a portrait of Clint Eastwood, standing strong, his iconic squint staring into the distance. She sent it to him. Days later, she got a simple text message. "Kid, this is the best painting I've ever seen. Keep going. Clint." Emily smiled, wiping away a tear. Because this wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of the rest of her life. Emily's story proves that no dream is too big, and no battle is too tough. If you believe in the power of perseverance, hit like, subscribe, and share this story. And tell us in the comments, what's your dream?